Joined today by someone I'm very grateful to have on the show, Scott Dworkin of the Dworkin Report. Scott, how are you? How are you
What's up,
holding
bro?
up? How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm lucky. I'm healthy and safe, and staying inside and not, you know, even socially interacting with anybody. At this point, I have a very small circle that I can be involved with because those are the people that have been around for 2 months now, and none of us are sick, and we're all just staying at either my house or this other house, and that's it. Like, we can't do anything else, and so we're just hanging in there. It's been an interesting road, but most of my days are about 18 hours long, and it's focused on obviously his wonderful propaganda press conferences, which he is still rambling on as we speak right now. Today was the most unhinged I've ever seen him, and I've seen him do everything. Over the past 40 years or whatever, I've investigated him more than most, and I can tell you, this is the worst I've ever seen him. So, if he were a friend or family member, I would recommend that he be committed. And that's how bad he was today. Anyway, sorry to digress from that. Thanks for having me
No, I
on.
mean, that's a lot of what we're going to talk about Trump because that's a lot of your program. It's a lot of your work. You have dug in and done the investigation on him, not just as a politician, but like as a person through his personal history for a long time. You've uncovered a lot of things about him. And that's one of the things, you're doing right now. You're covering these, you said it on Twitter. You said, I watched the press conference so you don't have to. It's like you're putting reports out on it, and it's never good. But I do appreciate that you lead off with that. You're like, this is pure propaganda. Here's, in case you're interested in it, what you missed.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
you know, you said that today was the most unhinged you'd ever seen him. What specifically struck you today that was so much worse than the rest of them so far?
So he had the CDC director and Dr. Birx, and Dr. Fauci was sidelined. So he reminded me of Putin today, and so he interacted with them. It was along the lines as the CDC director had said that it was going to come back. Coronavirus was going to come back stronger in the fall. He said that's the Washington Post. Trump wanted him to go up there and clarify, quote unquote, take it back. So he went up there, he rambled and talked in circles for a little bit, the CDC director did. And then he was asked directly by John Carl of ABC News, are you, the headline is this from Washington Post, are you standing by that? And he said, yes. And then Trump just flipped out and he's like, Dr. Birx, you want to come up here and talk about this? And she kind of talked in circles and tried to keep on leaving the podium. And so she was just and then she kept on, Trump tried to get close to her, as in hovering over, and she's backing away because social distancing. And, everybody gets tested before they enter the White House anyway. So it's a little different there. But it was very crazy. It was a crazy person. And then not only that, reporters were asking the doctors questions and he was interrupting them and just trying to say, well, we think coronavirus won't even be here in the fall, and no one thinks that it's going to be here in the fall. We're going to have people die from it. Their projections are pretty accurate, shockingly accurate right now, as we're on track to lose, hundreds of thousands of Americans to this disease just in this first wave, millions in the second if we don't get our act together. As Obama said today, we still have time. It's not too late to beat this thing, but we have to have universal, robust testing at a constant. And I'm talking about hundreds of millions of tests, not just one test for every American, but multiple tests over a span of time to make sure not only, if you're going to a sporting event, we need instant tests for everybody that goes in. If you're going to a concert, same thing. If you're going to these big events, we have to have that mass testing at that point, or else it's just going to spread more. People are going to die, and it's just going to cause more damage. It's the same thing as these people that are opening too early. He was mad because he it was reported that he admitted today that he told Georgia's governor that he disagreed with opening these things too early. And he only said that today when it leaked out that they recommend that he does not open Georgia until June 19th at the minimum. And that's to start opening things up because they haven't hit their peak yet. So to go out there and act like they're fine to reopen, we got to go do this, like it's a rush, and it's going to cost people's lives in the end. And there's going to be direct accountability to these, it's mostly Republicans, to these Republicans who decide to open too early, and they will directly have blood on their hands. And I myself and other people in the Democratic Party, but also Republicans together, are going to work to make sure that people are prosecuted for taking these actions. You can't do this. This is nonsense. And so, anyways, it was one of the worst things that I had ever seen, and that was just one part of it. Luckily, we've pressured CNN a lot, like harder than any other network, and Wolf Blitzer's been brilliant with it. Today, for example, Trump went on for the intro, and Wolf Blitzer was talking to Sanjay Gupta while Trump was on. And then the doctor comes on, the CDC director, and he interrupts and puts the doctor on. And then the doctor goes away, he cuts back and talks to Sanjay Gupta. Trump's back on. And then Dr. Birx comes on. Wait, we got to talk to Dr. Birx. And so they're doing it right now, but they're only doing it because millions of people said, I'm not going to watch your junk anymore if you do this. But it's kind of weird because the press conferences have turned out, they're terrible, right? But they've turned out to be rallying cries for us. So they've turned out to be beneficial for us in one way. It's sad because it hurts so many people. The only positive light I can take on it is that it also brings attention to what's a lie and what's not. It's one of the only ways we can do it. So if he didn't do these press conferences and try to have all this good PR around death, we wouldn't be able to call him out for it. So I think that this is going to get worse. As I've talked to hundreds at this point of psychiatrists, psychologists, medical professionals, they've all said that he's textbook sociopath. He's off his rocker. He definitely has hit his limit, and he's just going to become worse and more unraveled. And we're seeing it in real time now. This is what you, me, and other people have been warning about for the past 4 years or so, is this guy's coming out. This is exactly who we knew he was, a monster.
It does seem like the lies are getting almost more blatant and more on the nose and obvious. I mean, do you feel that way, or is this, to you, do you feel like this is still just old hat Trump? Because to me, it seems like it's unraveling quicker.
Right. So he's getting caught more. He's not able to distract as much, and we're not falling for the same games. He doesn't have the same bot networks online where he can confuse people, distract them, harass them, so that they get offline and they're not paying attention. And so he doesn't have the same weapons that he used to have, and he won't have the same weapons for the election. Like, Russia is not going to be able to use almost any of the tactics that they used before. And there's not many more advanced tactics that you can take at this point that, you'd be able to mask. And so with everybody, I just think it's going to, he definitely will get worse than this. This is who he's always been, but they were able to cover for him. And he was able to distract at a level where the press wouldn't come back to it, where the press wouldn't push back. And today, another great example, like I said, is the John Carl part where he pushed back and said, that's not true. That's not true. While Trump is talking, that's not true. And I'm like, thank you. That is about time somebody during these propaganda press conferences says, I wanted him to say the word lie, but he said that's not true. And it's kind of like, you can't just have someone rambling, giving false hope about death. Like, we're human beings, we're grown-ups, we can take it. We're Americans. We get it. People are going to die. Like, tell us the truth. We can handle it. It's going to be terrifying, but don't lie to us about it, because I'll tell you this, you can lie if you're a politician, but most of the time, if they're as egregious as this, there's going to be one person to blame. And when you when it comes down to it, an epidemiologist that I spoke with, a person that tracks the disease, I said, so are we going to be able to find out if there are deaths directly accountable to Trump? And she said, absolutely, at least thousands already. At least thousands already are directly related. At least 100,000 people are sick because of him. And there's going to be proof of that. There's already people that are planning to sue Fox News and Trump because they lost family members who cited Trump in text messages, emails, videos, in their posts online of like, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to do this. And they're dead now. And they died of coronavirus. And they literally thought it was a hoax. They thought it was fake news. They believed all the nonsense that Trump was spreading. And sadly, people died due to it. And now I can't blame him for the virus, but I can blame him for his virus. And that is really sickening. And it really is a cult. And that's what happens with a cult is he's telling people to go outside. Why do you tell the governor of Georgia not to reopen, but you tell people to have armed protests across the country? It's just like it's complete nonsense, and I don't understand exactly where he plans to go from here. But this is who he's always been. He's always been disgusting. But again, nobody can cover for him really anymore. And there's what is he going to do to distract? He can't really distract from this. This is just straight and narrow. Life or death. It completely shut down our economy. None of this would have happened under Obama. None of this would have happened under Hillary. None of this would have happened under Biden. Not at the same level, not even close. Yes, we would have had mass death. Yes, we would have had casualties, but this would have been shut down in February, maybe January, maybe earlier. And that's how bad the management of this, because the management should have been, oh yeah, it's bad news, but the entire country needs to shut down or we're going to die. And that's a president that sits in front of, in the Oval Office and says, this is what we're going to do. Here is the plan. And as Obama said today, there is no plan. And he does these burns, and I really hope that he gets more straightforward with it. But he does these burns today, he's like, as we're still awaiting a plan from the federal government on the coronavirus, we can still fight back. You know what I mean? And that for him is going way out there because he doesn't hit people like that, really. He doesn't attack them. And he definitely doesn't want to attack the president of the United States and his administration. But at this point, what else can he do? He's not going to sit back and take it. So, hopefully he'll be on the front lines. I know he'll be campaigning soon, but, it's going to be online. He's not going to, which again is probably to our benefit because the last thing we need is 40,000 people at a hate rally for Trump and him doing that across the country again. I don't believe that'll be able to happen because of his destructive tendencies. And if you want to, I will just say for everybody watching and listening, if you want to extend your stay-at-home orders, go protest. If you want to go protest, and I'm sure that most of the people listening don't want to, but if you want to go protest, that's on you. If you go protest and you block hospitals entrances and you harass doctors and nurses or whatever, our goal is going to be to make sure that you're put in prison eventually. All of these protesters that have come out, all these protesters that have come out, it will eventually be clear to everyone that the people who led these protests, a lot of them are going to be arrested. We just aren't going to do it right now. Why are we going to do it right now? But they're also on top of that. I'm not sure if you saw this. We already are investigating coronavirus corruption with Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner's under investigation. That's what the term would be because they're they're probing, whatever you want to call it. He's under investigation by the House because of these masks, and he's hoarding these things. He lied about them. He committed fraud. There's so many things about this that are disgusting, especially the testing and his brother's company and what they've done there, where they stalled testing and they tried to corner a market in regards to testing and the health company that they have. I'm sure that,
it's reminiscent of war profiteering, honestly.
Yeah. It is like Yeah, it is exactly like that. I mean, like that's they call it a war, so that's what it is. It's worse because they're building off the backs of dying Americans and people who are sick and people who are desperate, and it's just like they're painting a false portrait. Like this is probably the. I mean, there's been some bad times in American history. This is close to some of the most egregious and worst, definitely of our lifetime, for sure. And we're looking at. I mean, the fact that I have to sit here and think about. I have to calculate, a math guy. I have to sit here and calculate how many 9/11s is 47,000 people. Like to even think about the time that it would take. It's like okay, so there's over 15 9/11s. That's the level of people that have died as of now that we know of. And there's thousands of other bodies that haven't been tested. And there's hundreds of thousands of other people, at least, if not millions, that are already sick and either asymptomatic, passed it and didn't know it, or are sick and don't know it. And we'll find out about that in 2 weeks. This is I don't know what people are thinking, but in politics, this is what takes Trump down because you cannot survive spinning death because you can't do it. Because once you get caught and cornered, Americans are going to want someone to blame for this, and there is one person that absolutely can be blamed for it. Now, the Republican governors, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, well, this guy told me that it was okay to reopen. And this guy, he told me that it was a hoax. He told me, like, they're going to throw him under the bus real quick. It's not, Hogan's already doing it. Hogan released that the fact that he got 500,000 pieces of medical equipment from South Korea and did it on the sly because Jared Kushner and Trump were trying to block it. And you have the guy who wants to kill more Americans than anyone else in the world, Putin. He's talking to about coronavirus. And today they're talking about how they spread fake news to America in coalition with Iran and China. And so you have a world war right now going on with the pandemic. You don't know if people were trying to, I mean, like it's just crazy that we don't have the common sense or decency in the White House to at least just stop with the games and this build and snowball. It's just going to lead to more death. I mean, there's no other way about it. So luckily, there will be people held accountable for this. Every text message, email, their phone calls. It's going to take me and others years after this administration's gone to uncover what's happened, but it's essential for it to never happen again, and also to deter others from ever doing it again, and to hold those people accountable for what they've been involved with. Because it's not just this, but God knows what they are making money off of that we don't know about regarding coronavirus and everything else. Like, why was he pushing hydroxychloroquine so much? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Now we find studies that it's actually more deadly than it is helpful in regards to coronavirus. Like everything, and that's an anecdotal study. I'm a doctor now, apparently. It's a small study, I guess. But
we all are now.
It's crazy, yeah. And I can ramble, right? Yeah, it's okay.
That's the point of the show.
I'm a perfect fit then.
It is. I mean, it is. You mentioned prosecutions on some of these people, and I was thinking that today. I was listening to the Daily, and they're talking about, they start to uncover, how did these rallies start? They weren't organic. They were, kind of seeded by some of the same players that we saw in the original Tea Party movement, or at least in the co-option of the Tea Party movement, groups like Freedom Works and things like that. It's very different than when they were, protesting, the ACA. They are leading people into a public health crisis. And it reminds me very much of, what we saw in Charlottesville, where suddenly if you're the organizer or the funder of an event that causes, mass death and damage, there are criminal penalties for that. That's not a freedom of speech issue, which is, of course, what people are going to come back and argue against it. But this isn't about your right to assemble. This is about your right to create a dangerous environment for the community. But how does that? I think when you look at these are complex groups. They have a lot of money and a lot of funding to fight off those types of cases. I almost worry that we were able to go after the people in Charlottesville. They were these kind of loose network of extremists. The government was able to prosecute a handful of them somewhat effectively, right? But when you're going up against organized dark money groups like that, is there the possibility of that simply backfiring? What is there? Do you have any thought on what the PR spin cycle is going to look like from those groups, and will that serve as a kind of a galvanizing point for more of these rallies, for a larger movement? How do we contradict that narrative as we still try to hold these people accountable for what they're doing?
I think that government officials, that's more who we're going to focus on than anything else, is government officials that have, held corrupt acts, people that have insider trading, from the senator's perspective, their aides and staff that have benefited off of this, things that are obvious and clear cut, things that are borderline, people made their own decisions in regards to the rallies. I think some of the organizers, if people were to get sick and it's very clear that it was directly because of that rally that they organized, then I think that that's something that the state can prosecute. What I'll focus on specifically is at the federal level of anybody that is an elected official, especially a governor, maybe it would be Kemp or someone else, if they lead their state into a miserable cesspool, then working with the DOJ and others to coordinate a prosecution, because it's not something that's unheard of. There's public officials who get arrested and thrown in prison for the rest of their lives for fraud and for lying about something like water being poison, right? And it kills people. Think about it being a pandemic and thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds, not hundreds of thousands, but in your state die because of it or get sick. It's a disaster. And I don't know why people would want to risk that. But again, there's going to be clear-cut evidence. And I think we would go for the very, very, very clear cut kind of cases. We would not be reaching. And I think that's where we get ourselves in trouble. And there's a lot of backlash is if we go after everyone. And that's we want to make sure that justice is served, but we also are so many people, you know what I mean? And we have to focus and choose our battles. So I think that there's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit in regards to corruption and evil that we'll be able to prosecute. But that's not going to be anytime soon, because, I'm focused on one of the things we started 2 months ago, or timeline's lost me because I've lost track of time. I don't know what day it is. I think it's Wednesday. But we started Masks Now, masksnow.org. And what that is an effort. We have over 10,000 volunteers sewing masks and working with hospitals directly to provide. We thought it was going to be for patients to save up resources for doctors, but doctors and nurses and hospital staff have been using the masks that we've made because they don't have any equipment. And we're talking about major hospitals. We're talking about the best hospitals in the world. And if they don't have the equipment, like I think folks in rural Nebraska, they definitely don't have it. So coming together, there's ways to combat this now and funnel anger and anything else into helping people. And I think for now, that's the best route for our energy, is to try and help where we can and how we can, but also, in my role, I try to mix it up. And there's a lot of calling him out for nonsense and what he's saying is a lie or this is a distraction, and trying to simplify that. Because all I've ever tried to do since the beginning was I don't understand this. It's like somebody will say, this is what Trump did today. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense because of the logic X, Y, and Z. and then you have to unravel the puzzle of the propaganda and how they twist it. And I like to simplify it and be like, okay, this is what it is. And then they, Trump in the White House will look like, I don't know what he's talking about. And it's like literally exactly what they did. Anyways, I think that for now, my focus will remain on doing as much as I can every single day to help people, especially the medical professionals, but also help. And I know this is, but help the people with the red hats, to help the people who apparently can't help themselves, and like to be like, here are facts. Like, please don't go outside. Like, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to get sick. I don't care who you are. I really don't. You're in prison. I don't want you to get sick. I don't want you to die. And the fact that people don't have that humanity, I think that this is going to be that time where the entire world realizes, like, whoa, like, this is not a game. Like, this is a reset of humanity. So let's take that opportunity to make not the best of it, but I guess that's what it is you try to make the best out of the situation given to what we have. But there definitely will be a price to pay legally, monetarily and otherwise, for a lot of these people. Now, it doesn't mean that Trump will be held accountable for this, or but his underlings will, for sure. And I can tell you that it was a lot harder to get Sessions to recuse himself and Nunes to do his fake recusal and to publicly push for a Mueller to be appointed, and then for that to be report to be finished, and then for the prosecutions of Roger Stone. I'm not sure if you knew, but like in October 2016, I filed a complaint against Roger Stone with the FBI, saying that he was coordinating with WikiLeaks via Russia and the Russian government. And luckily we were right. But at the same time, that's what he eventually lied about to the FBI, and now got convicted. And he also said he started a hashtag arrest Scott Dworkin.
I was gonna. That was one of the things I was originally gonna ask about was arrest Scott Dworkin. I mean, that was a right wing viral phenomena.
I mean, good luck to him. I would just say that I have to live 100. Like, I have to be, with lawyers, CPA. I did self-imposed audits of me and the group I run, the Democratic Coalition, just to make sure everything. Because if I jaywalk, like, I'm going to be arrested if I'm in the wrong city. Like, I have to be careful. This is reality that we live in. So I've lived in a quarantine sort of lifestyle since mid 2016. It has not been fun and games and doing all this wonderful stuff. It's been grinding it out at a constant. Like, I was in West Virginia in points of 2017 because there were foreign governments that wanted to kill me because they did not like the fact that I was trying to push. I mean, no one in the world pushed for the Russia investigation more than me. And that's just as fact. That's not me bragging, big head, or anything like that. Like, no one pushed harder. No one. And no one was louder about it. We even started the Trump Russia hashtag. And I just thought it was so essential because I saw the long game and I saw what he was doing. And I knew exactly, based on everything we were doing, in politics, it's sad that we couldn't get it out earlier, but nobody was listening. There are so many. If you look at anyone who's been arrested, if you look at anyone who's under investigation or has been, we've been involved with every step of the way. Like, we have been the people who have publicized that, who have rallied people around it, raised public awareness, and that's been a focus. And the closest that they can do for me is to say that I get paid a salary for my job. And they're like, oh, he gets paid through his consulting company that he hasn't had any clients for since 2016. that I use because my whatever accountant tells me to, and it's like oh that's what you could get because I'm a simple dude.
The
I'm like
scandal.
it is such a scandal. I mean that's why you at some point two two hit pieces out of 4 years and thousands of artists, but it really they want to have that cloud of smoke around you so that there's doubt. But now everybody's got hit pieces, and they're a lot worse than that. But they're gonna go after you, and you have to get the crap kicked out of you in order to survive and make it through to the next level to be voicing your opinion now. And it's ridiculous. Like if someone wants to speak out, they should have the right to do so, and they should not be intimidated and harassed. And like you can viably combat someone in regards to what they're saying without, I guess, the worst way would be to threaten violence, to organize mobs around them, to try and physically, okay, who can find his house? Who can find where he lives? First one to find where he lives, I'll give $10,000, offering bounties on my head, trying to hack into things like Uber Eats, and then somebody saying like, I'm gonna poison you once I get in there, like crazy stuff. Not only that, but like the Russian military focusing on me and trolling me. And not only that, but the Russian government, this is right before Mueller, when I was calling for it on MSNBC, I was on it most weekends, uncovering some of the stuff. And the Russian embassy in the UK tweeted out, keep calling him Putin's puppet, to me, and then I think at the time, Louise Mensch. So with the cheers from The Great Gatsby of Leo DiCaprio. And so there's a lot of underlying layers to that. But it was just so creepy. And then I had a friend who does security stuff. He's like, you got to get out of here. You got to get, you don't know what just happened. Like you were just, that is a targeting scheme. Like you now have the target on your back. So I went to a cabin in West Virginia that was guarded, and it was, I just put my head down and went to work. I had internet, I had Mountain Dew, I had beef jerky, and then a few years later, I had a crown put in and 3 cavities. So the water tasted like junk, so it doesn't mesh well. You don't drink as much water because of it. You're lucky to have a water bottle around there because we were so isolated. But like that's what we had to do, and the fact that it was reality, I look back and I'm like, what was I doing? Am I crazy? Like it really was something that was just like.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine, and I've been curious since I've done it. I mean, what is the feeling like of seeing an embassy of a nation state tweet out these like vaguely threatening things directly at you and naming you? like, what's the first thought that went through your head when that happened?
I thought that it was like I was like, oh, every time I got a threat or something like that, the more official that it got, the more senior it got with Trump's people, the further it got up the chain, I was like, we're on to something. Like we have to keep at this. And it was just like piecing the information together. Like, here's photos of this, here's a timeline of this, here's videos of this. And it started to make sense. And it started to be like, okay, here's different players. Why are they now involved now? They had this money. And it was just kind of like, I used it to feed my fire instead of feed fear. And so it literally, like, anytime there was a threat or especially something like that, I was like, this is the time. And it was evidence that I could present to the members of Congress directly, citing like, listen, like, obviously something is going on here. Like, obviously, and Sessions recusing himself was the ultimate proof of that, because he didn't want to get thrown under this bus, I guess. And he knew something was so great. Of all people in the world, Jeff Sessions is the one who appoints. That is insane. That's insane. And so when I saw these things, all it does is, and it still does to this day, all it does is make me work harder. And we don't do as much of the investigations anymore because finally, like, the press is around it. But at one point, we were the only ones doing it. They were covering what Trump said, this person said, Huckabee said, Spicer said this, blah, 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 blah. And we're like, hey, here is a connection between Donald Trump Jr. that we found and photos and videos of his meeting with a guy from Latvia who worked with the Russian mob, who also is tied to a Mexican cartel. And it's like that tied Don Jr. to a Mexican cartel. And it's like, but Trump said this. And it's just like, you look back on all the things and it's like, it's absolutely crazy. And this is, I want to remind folks, in November of 2016, when I released my report on Russia 2 days after the election, the report from the New York Times and others was that there was no Russian ties and that Russia did not interfere in our election. So, I was up against myself, the Royal We, our organization, like we were up against a lot, everything, because no one believed us. And not only that, even though we had receipts, even though we had proof, and it was just like, it was crazy town, and we didn't understand it. And that was, I guess, the key to them winning the election, winning per se, losing the popular vote, winning the election, the game they play. But that was the key to them succeeding, is that we didn't know. I didn't have a Twitter really in 2016. I didn't really know what to do there. I didn't really use social media. I was always behind the scenes. I worked on over 1,000 campaigns and nonprofits since 2002. And it's in all 50 states in DC. So I had a lot of experience, but I was always, and I mean always, behind the scenes. Like one time when I was helping to run the draft Biden campaign years ago, I think, when was that, 2015? I think an email that I sent out to somebody saying, if he were to run for president, would you want to work? And it leaked out, and it was like all this hubbub, like, oh, look at this, he's running. And I learned from that. I was like, well, I'm not going to do that again. So ever since then, I've been super careful about what I was doing. But then there was like this second of like the election. I mean, we were calling him out in I think the first thing that I was like, enough, as in like nobody else was speaking out in the way that we needed to be. This delegate, as an elected official at the state house level in West Virginia, Mr. Folk is his name. And he said that Hillary should be hung on the mall, the National Mall in DC. And it was just so explicit. And I was like, what is he doing? And then Bolsonaro started coming up with threats. And we were like, okay, what can we do? Like, is there anything that we can do whatsoever as like civilians? What can we do? And so we looked into, well, can we file complaints with like law enforcement? Can we work with lawyers to figure out how can we bring attention to it? So we organized, basically, we had people, this guy who was a delegate was a pilot for a commercial airline. And so we contacted the commercial airline and we said, hey, is this who you represent? And when they didn't listen to us, we started saying boycott. And then they listened to us and suspended them. Then we started having people contact all the Democrats and Republicans in the State House and Senate, like the delegates in West Virginia, and they were getting annoyed. Then we were tweeting at them and everything like that. And this is during the election in 2016. But that started to build, and then the news reports started coming out locally and nationally about like, look at this guy said, like, not that he just said it, but the fact that he was being reported, like investigated by Secret Service, like, and all of a sudden it started coming to us like, oh, like we can fight back PR wise. We can fight back by putting a spotlight on it and being like, if you do this, if you make these threats, if you're this egregious and disgusting, like you are going to pay for it in regards to every legal remedy we have available to us. And in that, we started with that, moved down the line to like a few weeks to the election, and it was Richard Burr, Senator Burr, said that Hillary should have a target on her back, joking about her getting shot, and we we just, it was simple at that point. Like we reported to the Secret Service, and they, somebody announced a report, and he had to cancel all his fundraising events for then. I mean, like we were starting to figure out resistance. We were starting to figure out, okay, like if we take this action, we can do X, Y, and Z. Same thing happened with Roger Stone. Same thing happened with Michael Flynn when we worked with the Hill and other folks in Congress, like Cummings, on the 17th of November. We were the ones who submitted the complaint, the FARA complaint, the foreign actor complaint against Michael Flynn. And that was like a blip in the Washington Post or whatever. And there was a letter sent by Elijah Cummings as well. And it was saying that Michael Flynn was paid by Russia during, like before the US election. And then he was working with them leading up to it. And he was an unregistered foreign agent. I did not know what an unregistered foreign agent was. And we were filing this complaint against him. But we realized, like, same thing with Comey. We were the ones who filed the DOJ complaint, and there was something else that I can't remember but anyways, when he sent out that letter about Hillary and reopening and all that stuff, like a few hours later, we submitted the complaint, and then we had the wave pushing back against his letter, as in like what he did was wrong, what he did was illegal. And we were starting to get, but it was too late. You know what I mean? Like we were starting to figure out, okay, we have something here. And then we were able to turn it up, for investigations, turn it up for the 2018 election. And now, we're launching in the next 24 hours the biggest online organizing effort for presidential in world history, or for any election ever. And I can say that confidently with the network that we have assembled. But it's 4 years, every single day, banging it out. Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve. And it's the grind every single day. It's not magic that we have this gigantic group. Like, it's not magic that we have such a big following or big numbers online. It's hard work. You have to earn people's trust. There's no ability for leeway. You have to deliver on what you promise. When you say you're going to do an ad and air it, you have to do it. And anything, if I were to do anything, step out of line or do anything wrong, I'd be in deep doo-doo. And so we're very careful about everything I do, every interview I do, every person I talk to. Like, I'm abundance of caution, because these people are crazy, and they will stop at nothing to get after you. And that includes trying to hurt you physically.
It is. I mean, the level of, like, at the very least, like, threatened physical violence is absolutely insane. And I mean, we talked about this when I was on your show back in August of last year. I mean, I was on the receiving end of it. It's a shocking and constant part of our political climate at the end of the last decade, as we now move into a new decade. It does not seem to be disappearing. And I can't think of anything possibly more unfortunate or more frightening in some ways, frankly. We are getting to the end of the program, and I like to ask everyone this at the end, which is, throughout your whole career, your personal life, what's the thing that you most hope to convey to other people? What's been the message that's most important to you through all this?
Is that you can help people if you try. I guess if you make an effort and you want to do something. I'm not going to give some kind of speech here, and that kind of nonsense. But I'd say, like, if you want to help people, you can. You just need to do it. You stop talking about it. Take action in any way possible, and that includes it could be small acts. It doesn't have to help thousands of people or millions of people. It could help one person. And you can make a difference in the world nowadays, online and elsewhere, especially online now. But I think what I've always wanted to do is I always wanted to give everybody a fair chance. I want people to have a fair chance to succeed. And so I try to use my white privilege to benefit people who don't have the same ability to speak out for those who can't. And I think that I don't see a point in life without being able to do that. I think that my calling is just to do what I can every day to try and help people because I'm able. Because I've, I think that people take it for granted and sometimes think I need to stay in this data entry job or I need to do this. Like if you want to make a difference, do it. You can do it. I promise you. And I think that's what I take away from my life, and my life's goal is just to make a difference in every way that I can possible, every single day of my life, no matter when it is, because I'm a true believer as I study meditation and yoga and things like that. I really believe that that everybody deserves a fair shot, and I know that most of the people in this country don't have one. And so I think people who are on this now, like, find a way to speak out, and your voice matters. And it doesn't matter if you have 30,000 likes or 1 like on your tweets, or it doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter, because you don't know who you'll inspire. You don't know if you'll inspire the next Barack Obama. You don't know if you'll inspire the next Michelle Obama. You don't know if you'll inspire somebody that is going to make a gigantic difference down the line. And also, it doesn't matter, because, for example, if you could do one good deed. I tweeted something the other day, and this guy messages me, and it was basically like, don't feel alone at this time. And I don't. My friend said, you got to do some more positive stuff, and so I wrote a positive post as in, like, if you're feeling lonely, know that you're not alone. Know that I love you. Know that I care about you, and that you are not alone, and we're with you. And one guy, he's like, oh, and this is not a joke. This is not like some kind of story that I made up. Like, he's like, oh, like, I was thinking about taking these pills. Like, I would think about taking these pills tonight. I was thinking about, and it's a real person. Like, we verified that. But it's just like, the extent I'll talk about it is he planned on committing suicide. And it's not based on, like, just my post alone or anything like that. That caused him to do X, Y, and Z, call his mom, call other people, and realize, like, it just turned something on for him. It was one of many things. It was not the only thing. Like, he had other things that made him realize this kind of thing. But the fact that I played a small part in that at all was just, like, so warm to me. And it just made me push even harder, because it's, this is what it's about. If you're not helping people, what are you doing?
I couldn't possibly agree with you more. I mean, at the end of the day, all we really have is each other, and mm-hmm. I think the only thing that matters, the only legacy we really leave, is what we do for one another. Mm-hmm. Well, that was Scott Dworkin. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show. Find him on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else at the Dworkin Report.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. And stay safe, stay inside, stay healthy, everybody, and take this very seriously. We're going to be in for a lot longer than Trump thinks, but probably at least another month or so. But we can do this. And so thank you for having me on your show. Thank you for letting me speak here, and I really appreciate it, and I hope to be back on again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Scott.